Hello, Saints. Looking at a subject here I call the Christian stumbling stone. Our text is Romans 9, verses 30 to 33. This section here in Romans 9, 10, and 11 deals with Israel and what a real Christian is, to define a Christian. And he defines Israel here too, those who believe in Jesus. In this text we're looking at, it begins with, what shall we say? That Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness have attained to the righteousness, even the righteousness of faith? But Israel, pursuing the law of righteousness, has not attained to the law of righteousness. Why? Because they did not seek it by faith, but as it were, by the works of the law. For they stumbled at that stumbling stone. As it is written, Behold, I lay in Zion a stumbling stone and rock of offense, and whoever believes on him will not be put to shame. When we look at this here, we ask ourselves, what was their stumbling stone? What did they stumble over? Well, we know they stumbled over Christ, but why? What was the purpose? The key here is that they sought the righteousness of the law, through works, and not by faith. They erred. They were wrong. They weren't supposed to follow that path, but they did. And they met Christ in his theology, faith in what he would do on Calvary. They stumbled. They weren't ready to accept it. The stumbling stone isn't just a stone set in Zion, but it's a stone in many churches. Even within our own denomination, we have this stone. And we're going to look at what it is that we need not stumble over. Let's go here back earlier into Romans chapter 3. Now, Paul had given the reason why he wanted to preach the gospel. And he spends most of it then, about chapter 1, verse 18, all the way through chapter 3, verse 23, about why the Jews and Gentiles both need to hear this word. And so when we get down to the conclusion, all have sinned, come short of the glory of God, he's prepared now to preach the gospel. And we begin here in verse 24. If I can get to it here. And being justified freely, he says, by his grace, through the redemption that it is in Christ Jesus. Being justified freely by his grace, through the redemption that it is in Christ Jesus. He's talking about a state of being justified, not a future thing. You're justified when you believe in Christ right now. Being justified, and then he explains exactly what it means. It isn't through faith in Jesus Christ. Being justified, he writes, freely by his grace. So being justified is a gracious act. It's how he saves us. Through redemption that it is in Christ. Then we get the gospel message, whom God has set forth as the appeasement for sin by his blood on the cross. Many people stumble over the faith issue because they think that faith is weak. And so they look to a works or merit-based system. Many focus on sanctification, not justification. And we're going to talk more about that next time. Blessings.